Sometimes scientists stumble upon an artifact that they can't quite make sense of. Either it doesn't fit with the time period, or they can't figure out what in the world it was used for, thus making it one of the many mysterious ancient artifacts that have been recovered. Join us as we travel around the world in search of some of the most mysterious and thought-provoking ancient artifacts. Antikythera mechanism. This mysterious artifact almost looks like something from the future, but it's actually at least 2,000 years old. This machine of sorts was found in the remains of a sunken Greek cargo ship. It's made of bronze and contains an intricate system of 30 hand-cut gears. The face of the device also has characters etched into it. Now, at first, archaeologists thought that it might be a navigational device, sort of like an ancient GPS. Now, however, they're thinking that it might be an astronomical calendar to track solar and lunar eclipses, but they still aren't really quite sure what it was used for. Regardless of what it is and what it was used for, they say that it's the most advanced clock-like device that they've ever found from that time period, and nothing else like it appears for another 1,000 years. An ancient screw. As far as we know, screws, or at least the use of screw threads, date back to as early as 400 AD, but they may have been around long before humans were even known to exist. Scientists found a 1 centimeter by 3 millimeter screw complete with a head and nut inside, in what they thought to be was an old piece of farming machinery. But what they would further discover is what they believed to be a screw that was actually lodged inside of a 300 to 320 million year old rock, meaning that according to science, the screw had to be a little older than the rock was. They then began to speculate, due to its thread-like characteristics, that perhaps it was a crinoid trunk fossil. The only problem with that theory is that, after performing an X-ray on the rock, the object in question proved to be larger than any known fossil of that kind. Inspection from a variety of specialists indicate that the screw was in the sediment, well before it formed into a rock, and that the screw was not something made in nature, forcing scientists to wonder where exactly it came from. This, of course, would lead some conspiracy theorists to believe it was put there by aliens, while others speculate that perhaps there may have been an ancient civilization that was even more sophisticated than we thought. And if it is from aliens, let's hope that they don't go looking for their lost screw anytime soon. An ancient hammer. Perhaps the aliens that had the screw loose also lost this hammer somewhere along the line. That's because scientists have found one in an ancient rock in Texas. And much like the screw, in order for the rock to form around the hammer in the manner it did, the hammer had to have existed before the rock. Upon examination of both the handle and the 97% pure iron head of the hammer, it really doesn't appear that old. However, scientists believe that the head endured a purification process, which resulted in a more pure iron head, even more so than what might have originally been crafted. When scientists tested the rock and encased the mysterious hammer, they estimate that it dates back to 400 million years ago. Now they're left wondering who was walking around with a hammer during that era of time. A 3-pronged plug. Now we move on from handy ancient aliens to those with electricity, or at least electrical plugs, all before electricity was even a thing. In 1998, while hiking somewhere in the middle of nowhere in North America, John J. Williams saw an electrical plug sticking out of the ground. After some digging, he would unearth a rock with a 3-pronged plug sticking out of it, which came to be known as the Petrodox. And what's odd though is that Williams refuses to tell anyone where he found it, and wouldn't even consider selling it for $500,000. But he did let researchers have a go at it, figuring out how it might have come to be, but only under the conditions that the rock isn't broken in half and that he's present at all times. Science believes that the rock appears to be a very solid formation that doesn't contain any adhesives, which means that the 8mm diameter electrical plug existed at the time that the rock was formed, and science says that that was 100,000 years ago. Despite defying all logic and professional counsel that it's just a hoax, Williams thinks that it really is a 100,000-year-old artifact from a technologically advanced ancient civilization, or, once again, aliens. Thonis Heraklion and Canopus. While the city of Thonis Heraklion was mentioned in various ancient texts, people in the modern era just assumed that it was a mythological city, because no one in the world ever could find where it was. That's because it was hiding underwater. In the year 2000, a French archaeologist was miles off the coast of Alexandria, searching for an 18th century French warship, when he noticed a large statue staring back at him. After taking a closer look, he realized that he had stumbled upon the lost city of Thonis Heraklion, as well as parts of another city named Canopus. Despite it being underwater for over 1,000 years, the artifacts were fairly well preserved, and a team was sent to extract the remains of the city. Within the city ruins were 64 shipwrecks, 700 anchors, a treasure chest filled with gold coins, large statues, and parts of a temple dedicated to a god, as well as the vessels used to hold animal sacrifices. After examining the finds, they discovered that Heraklion wasn't just your run-of-the-mill city. This powerhouse controlled all trade within Egypt. They even found ancient texts that discuss the trade and tax agreements, and mention the names Thonis, which is Egyptian, and Heraklion, which is Greek, and were both used interchangeably to reference the same city, solving one of the lost city's biggest puzzles. However, scientists are still not sure why the city suddenly vanished underwater, but they believe that a wet clay and sand foundation, combined with the weight of the buildings, may have something to do with it. The Genetic Disc. The genetic disc is one of the most challenged ancient finds, with many thinking that it's probably a hoax. This 27-centimeter, little over 2-pound Lydite disc was allegedly found by Professor Jamie Gutierrez somewhere in Colombia. That's all that's really known about its past. We don't know how, or when, or where in Colombia that it was discovered. But if you can get past all of that, it's really quite an interesting find. It's said to be about 6,000 years old, and when you put it under a microscope, you can see biological depictions, including sperm, genitalia, egg cells, and the various stages of fetal development. The real question, however, is how could people who lived 6,000 years ago have known about the various stages of the fetus, including what they looked like, especially considering that the ultrasound wasn't even invented until the 1950s. But then again, we ask, is it aliens or a super advanced ancient civilization that we've yet to discover? Ancient Nampa figurine. While workers were drilling for water in 1889 in Nampa, Idaho, they found a tiny little clay figurine. While finding artifacts when digging into the ground isn't really anything unusual, the depth at which they found it was what stunned them. The workers drilled through 50 feet of soil, 15 feet of basalt, and then beds of clay and quicksand, a total of 300 feet before they found the 1.5-inch long art-like figurine, which eerily resembles the human female body. An examination of the minerals inside of the figurine, along with the fact that it was found in strata, is said by science to be 2 million years old, and indicates that it's an ancient artifact. Since no other hominid other than the Homo sapien was known to create works of art like this, there must have been modern people living in Idaho 2 million years ago. But according to the Darwinian theory of evolution, modern people didn't exist anywhere near that time period. But ancient Sanskrit writings say that people have been around since the beginning, and sources have found figures of gods and goddesses that are even older than the Nampa figurine. One thing science doesn't deny is that the figurine is not a hoax, that it's actually very old, and that it was crafted by a true artist. If this figurine really is 2 million years old, they may want to consider reworking their theories of evolution. The Shroud of Turin. Now, nothing gets people more excited than historical artifacts that claim to be from around the time of Jesus, especially when the artifact allegedly belonged to the Son of God himself. One day, a large cloth, stained with small amounts of blood, and the imprint of a man's body that was rumored to be Jesus' burial shroud, showed up at a Catholic church in France in AD 1353, which was just 1300 years after the burial of Jesus Christ, and the Catholic Church excitedly made a note of its existence. As the rumor goes, the shroud was taken from Judea, which is now known as southern Palestine, to Edessa, and then to Turkey, and then to Constantinople, which is now Istanbul. Using radiocarbon dating, researchers estimate that it might not be the amazing discovery that everyone thinks it is. While the cloth is old, it actually dates back to AD 1260, and not during Jesus' time period of AD 30 to 33. Researchers think that it's actually a reproduction that's been used as a symbol in medieval worship services. However, some people claim that the researchers only tested the newer portions of the cloth that were adorned after Jesus' death to keep it from unraveling. To this day, neither historians, theologians, or researchers see eye to eye on the origin of the Shroud of Turin. Stonehenge. One of the world's most debated mysteries is that of Stonehenge, which is located in England. Archaeologists know that it was built approximately 4,000 years ago by a group of primitive people, ones that left behind no written record of their existence, which is perhaps why people are so fascinated with a historic landmark. The monument consists of large stones that stand upright in a circular formation, and considering the size, the construction of the monument is actually impressive. I mean, it's not like they had machines or let alone wheeled wagons back then to help put it up. In fact, some believe that it may have been constructed by supernatural forces, because stones like that would be impossible to move by just human strength. Others argue, however, that they had the knowledge and resources, like logs and animal fat, to figure out a way to make it work. But as for its purpose, archaeologists are still stumped to this day. Some speculate that it may have been used for astronomy purposes, or even as a holy or healing place, for ancestor worship, or perhaps a cemetery. To this day, none of these theories have rock-solid evidence to prove. This has been a look at some of the most mysterious ancient artifacts that we've ever discovered. But what did we miss from our list? And which one of these is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching. January 2016 was also the month of the first successful head transplant carried out on a monkey by Chinese scientists.